In the bustling streets of New Beijing, 2157, a young diplomat named Raj Kumar never imagined that his ordinary day would become the catalyst for humanity's greatest diplomatic triumph. The morning sun painted the crystalline towers in hues of amber as he hurried through the crowded skyways, his mind preoccupied with the upcoming interstellar conference. Raj wasn't born into privilege. Growing up in the outskirts of Mumbai, he had witnessed humanity's struggles and triumphs firsthand. His grandmother often told him stories of the great water wars, when nations teetered on the brink of collapse. But humans, as they always did, found a way to unite and overcome. Now, as Earth's youngest diplomatic representative at 32, he carried those lessons close to his heart. The Galactic Council chamber loomed before him, a testament to human architectural ingenuity merged with alien technological insights. Inside, representatives from 17 different species gathered for what seemed like another routine meeting. The Arxulians with their shimmering crystalline bodies occupied the upper tiers, while the methodical Zentu, resembling elegant mantids, took their usual spots near the podium. But something felt different today. The air crackled with unspoken tension as Raj took his seat. The council's high speaker, a towering Zentu named First Light of Dawn, raised all four of their appendages for silence. The news that followed sent ripples of concern through the chamber. A rogue asteroid mining operation had accidentally destabilized a sacred Arxulian crystalline moon. Accusations flew across the chamber. The Arxulians demanded immediate sanctions against the human mining corporations. Other species, seeing an opportunity to limit Earth's expanding influence, quickly joined the chorus of criticism. Decades of carefully built diplomatic relations threatened to unravel in minutes. Raj felt the weight of billions of human lives on his shoulders. But instead of responding with defensive arguments or counter-accusations, he remembered his grandmother's wisdom about the water wars. Standing slowly, he did something unprecedented in council history. He asked for permission to share a story. Before we proceed with sanctions, he began, his voice steady despite his racing heart, let me tell you about a time when humanity faced its own environmental crisis. About how my grandmother's generation nearly destroyed themselves fighting over water, but then found a way to turn enemies into allies. The chamber fell silent. Even the usually restless Arxulians stilled their crystalline forms to listen. Raj spoke of how nations that once pointed weapons at each other eventually collaborated to develop water purification technology that saved billions. He drew parallels between that crisis and the current situation, suggesting that this accident could become an opportunity for unprecedented cooperation between humans and Arxulians. We don't ask for forgiveness without action, Raj continued, pulling up holographic projections of advanced human terraforming technology. We propose a joint human Arxulian task force to not only repair the damaged moon but to enhance its crystalline structures. Our mining engineers have developed methods that could potentially make it even more sacred and beautiful than before. The Arxulian representatives' crystals changed color, from angry red to thoughtful blue. First Light of Dawn's antennae twitched with interest. What had started as a diplomatic crisis was transforming into something else entirely, a chance for two species to understand each other better. As Raj outlined the detailed proposal, he noticed something remarkable. Other species representatives were leaning forward, their own ancient grievances momentarily forgotten as they witnessed this unexpected turn of events. The human capacity for turning disasters into opportunities for growth was something many alien species found both puzzling and fascinating. The session extended long into the evening. Technical details were discussed, cultural considerations were carefully weighed, and preliminary agreements were drafted. But more importantly, a new understanding was being forged. The Arxulians began sharing stories of their own past crises and how they overcame them, creating an atmosphere of mutual learning and respect. As the first day of negotiations drew to a close, Raj stood by the chamber's panoramic windows, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors that reminded him of the Arxulians' crystalline forms. First Light of Dawn approached him, their towering form casting long shadows. Your species continues to surprise us, the High Speaker commented, their translator struggling to convey the complex harmonics of their language. We came expecting conflict but found wisdom instead. Raj smiled, thinking of his grandmother and countless others who had taught humanity the hard lessons that led to this moment. Sometimes, he replied, the best way forward is to remember where we've been. The crisis wasn't over, there were still many details to work out, treaties to draft, and technologies to adapt. But as Raj made his way home through the now quiet skyways of New Beijing, he felt a profound sense of hope. Today had proven once again that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in its technologies or achievements, but in its ability to learn from its mistakes and find common ground with others, even across the vast gulfs of space and culture. The weeks following the historic council meeting brought unexpected challenges and opportunities. While Raj coordinated the joint human-Arxulian restoration project from New Beijing, another story was unfolding in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, where the practical work of healing began. Chief Engineer Priya Patel stood in the observation deck of the mining vessel, Earthbridge, watching as teams of human and Arxulian specialists worked together in the void of space. Her dark hair, streaked with premature gray at 40, floated freely in the zero-gravity environment. 20 years of space engineering experience hadn't prepared her for the complexity of this project, or for working with crystalline beings who communicated through color and light as much as words. The resonance patterns are shifting again, announced her Arxulian counterpart, seventh gleam of twilight, their crystalline form pulsing with concerned purple hues. The massive holographic display showed the damaged moon's core structure, where centuries of sacred Arxulian growth patterns had been disrupted by human mining operations. Priya pushed away from the window, her movements graceful after years in space. "Show me the latest readings," she said, her voice carrying the calm confidence that had earned her this position. The data streams painted a complex picture, the moon's crystalline matrices were proving more intricate than anyone had anticipated. But complexity had never stopped humanity before. Back on Earth, Priya's own family had survived the Mumbai floods of 2089 by adapting and innovating. Now, facing this new challenge, she drew on that same spirit of resilience. "I think I see the problem," she said, manipulating the holographic display with practiced gestures. "We're approaching this like engineers, trying to force the crystals into their previous pattern. But look here," she highlighted a section where new crystal formations were already growing naturally, "the moon is trying to heal itself. Maybe we should work with these natural patterns instead of against them." Seventh Gleam's color shifted to an intrigued blue-green. "Like your Earth forests after a fire," they observed, their translator struggling to convey the musical undertones of their speech. New growth following natural paths, but creating something different than what was there before. The observation deck fell silent as both human and Arxulian teams processed this new perspective. It was more than just a technical solution, it represented a fundamental shift in how both species approached the problem. Instead of trying to restore the past, they could help guide the moon toward a new future. Over the next few days, the joint team developed a new approach. Human mining drones were reprogrammed to work alongside Arxulian crystal shapers, not to control the growth but to nurture it. The results were spectacular. New crystalline formations began emerging, more complex and beautiful than the original structures. But not everyone was pleased with this development. A faction of conservative Arxulian religious leaders protested, arguing that allowing the sacred moon to change was sacrilege. Some human mining corporations, worried about the precedent this would set for future operations, began lobbying against the project. The tension came to a head when Priya received an urgent message from Raj. The council was considering suspending the project pending review. Years of progress in human-Arxulian relations hung in the balance. That evening, as Priya walked through the ship's hydroponics garden, seeking clarity among the floating plants that reminded her of home, she had an idea. She found Seventh Gleam in their crystalline meditation chamber and made an unusual request. The next day, during an emergency council session, instead of presenting technical reports or diplomatic arguments, Priya and Seventh Gleam shared something unprecedented, a joint consciousness-sharing ceremony, modified from an ancient Arxulian ritual. Through a combination of human neural interface technology and Arxulian crystalline resonance, they allowed the council members to experience their shared memories of the project. The council felt Priya's wonder at seeing the new crystal formations emerge, experienced Seventh Gleam's profound connection to their sacred traditions, and understood how both species' approaches had combined to create something greater than either could have achieved alone. "What we've discovered," Priya explained after the ceremony, her voice slightly shaky from the intense experience, "is that change doesn't have to mean loss. The moon isn't just being repaired, it's evolving, just as our understanding of each other is evolving." Seventh Gleam pulsed with harmonious golden light. "In our oldest teachings," they added, "we speak of how the first crystals grew from chaos into order. Perhaps this is another such moment of growth, not just for the moon, but for both our peoples." The impact was immediate and profound. The council not only approved the continuation of the project but expanded its scope. What had begun as a crisis response was becoming a model for future human-alien cooperation. Back on the Earth bridge, Priya stood again at the observation window, watching the transformed moon catch the light of distant stars. Its new crystalline formations created ever-changing patterns of light and color, a physical representation of what could happen when different species worked together instead of against each other. "Beautiful, isn't it?" came a voice behind her. She turned to find Raj, who had made the journey from Earth to see the project firsthand. "My grandmother would have loved this," he said, gazing out at the spectacle. "She always said that the best solutions come when we stop trying to control nature and start working with it instead." Priya nodded, thinking of her own family's history of adaptation and survival. "It's funny," she replied, "how often the biggest breakthroughs come not from forcing our way forward, but from learning to see things differently." As they watched, a group of young human and Arxulian apprentices passed by, engaged in animated discussion about new applications for the crystal-shaping technology. Their easy cooperation, unimaginable just months ago, was perhaps the project's greatest success. News of the successful human-Arxulian collaboration spread across the galaxy like ripples in a cosmic pond. But on a remote research station orbiting Jupiter's moon Europa, Dr. Aisha Rahman was about to make a discovery that would test this newfound alliance in ways no one could have predicted. The research station, nicknamed Deepwater, had been Aisha's home for the past 3 years. As lead xenobiologist, she spent her days studying the mysterious life forms that thrived in Europa's subsurface oceans. The work was isolating, but the wonders she encountered made every moment worthwhile. That morning started like any other. Aisha was reviewing data from the deep-sea probes when her instruments detected an anomaly. At first, she thought it was a malfunction. The reading suggested a massive crystalline structure growing within Europa's ocean, similar to Arxulian sacred formations but with properties she'd never seen before. "You need to see this," she called out to her research partner, Dr. Chen Wei, who was monitoring bacterial cultures across the lab. Together, they watched as the readings grew stronger. The structure wasn't just similar to Arxulian crystals, it was alive and growing at an unprecedented rate. "This can't be natural," Chen muttered, his experienced eyes scanning the data streams. "The energy signatures, they're almost identical to the patterns from the restored moon, but there's something else here. Something older." Aisha felt a chill run down her spine despite the station's regulated temperature. If they were right, this discovery could rewrite everything humanity thought they knew about both Europa and the Arxulians. But first, they needed help. Within hours, a conference call connected the Europa station with New Beijing and the Earth Bridge. Raj and Priya listened intently as Aisha explained their findings, while Seventh Gleam's crystalline form pulsed with intense colors that their translator couldn't fully interpret. "The patterns," Seventh Gleam finally spoke, their usual melodic tones carrying an edge of what might have been fear. "They match our most ancient records, from before our species achieved consciousness. We thought they were just legends. The implications slowly dawned on everyone. The crystal formations on Europa might be evidence that the Arxulians' evolutionary ancestors had once visited Earth's solar system. But why Europa? And why were they becoming active now? We need to investigate this carefully, Raj cautioned, his diplomatic instincts kicking in. This discovery could either strengthen our alliance or tear it apart, depending on how we handle it. The next few weeks saw Deepwater Station transformed into a hub of unprecedented cooperation. Arxulian crystal shapers worked alongside human scientists, combining their understanding of crystalline life forms with humanity's expertise in deep-sea exploration. Aisha found herself leading increasingly complex expeditions beneath Europa's icy surface. The human-designed submersibles had been modified with Arxulian technology, allowing them to navigate through crystal-rich waters that would have scrambled their sensors just months ago. During one such dive, accompanied by an Arxulian specialist named Morningsong through ice, they made physical contact with the growing crystal structure. The moment their instruments touched the ancient formation, both human and Arxulian technology lit up with activity. "It's responding to us," Morningsong chimed, their crystalline body resonating with the structure. "But not just to me, to both of us. That should be impossible." Back on the station, the data they collected painted an extraordinary picture. The Europa crystals weren't just similar to Arxulian sacred formations, they represented a missing link between simple crystal growth and conscious crystalline life. Moreover, they seemed to respond to both Arxulian resonance patterns and human bioelectric fields. "It's like finding a common ancestor," Aisha explained during another conference call. But more than that, these formations might explain why humans and Arxulians can interact so successfully with each other's technology. We might have more in common than anyone realized. The discovery sparked intense debate in both human and Arxulian societies. Some saw it as proof of a deeper connection between their species, while others feared it might undermine their unique identities. Religious leaders on both sides struggled to incorporate this new information into their worldviews. One afternoon, as Aisha was documenting changes in the crystal growth patterns, she noticed something unusual. The formations weren't just growing, they were organizing themselves into structures that resembled both human neural networks and Arxulian communication matrices. "Look at this," she called to Chen, who had been analyzing genetic samples nearby. "It's like they're trying to create some kind of bridge between our species' ways of thinking." The observation proved prophetic. Over the next several days, the crystal structures began emanating patterns that could be interpreted by both human and Arxulian sensing equipment. They weren't just ancient artifacts, they were a kind of library, storing information in a format that both species could understand. As the team began decoding these patterns, they uncovered something remarkable. The crystals contained records of ancient climate changes on both Earth and the Arxulian homeworld. Somehow, millions of years ago, these crystalline organisms had preserved information about both planets' evolutionary histories. "This isn't just about our past," Raj remarked during a visit to the station, watching as human and Arxulian researchers worked side by side to unlock more secrets. "This is about our future. These crystals show us that our species' paths have been intertwined for longer than we imagined. Maybe they're showing us a way forward too." The Europa discovery was rapidly becoming more than just a scientific breakthrough. It was evolving into a symbol of what humans and Arxulians could achieve together, a physical reminder that the barriers between their species might be more permeable than anyone had suspected. The revelation of the Europa crystals sent shockwaves through both human and Arxulian societies, but nowhere was the impact felt more strongly than in the small coastal town of Kochi, India. Here, in a sophisticated research facility overlooking the Arabian Sea, Dr. Anita Desai was about to make another breakthrough that would change everything. As summer monsoon rains drummed against the laboratory windows, Anita studied the holographic projection of a crystal sample retrieved from Europa. Unlike her colleagues at Deepwater Station, she wasn't looking for historical records or biological patterns. Instead, she was searching for something far more immediate, a way to use the crystal's unique properties to combat Earth's ongoing climate crisis. The thermal regulation capabilities are extraordinary, she explained to her team during their morning briefing. These crystals don't just store information, they store and distribute energy in ways we never thought possible. Her research partner, a young atmospheric scientist named Dev Kumar, leaned forward to examine the data more closely. It's like they're designed to maintain environmental balance, he observed, his eyes reflecting the shimmering holographic patterns. Almost like Earth's own systems, but more efficient. Their work had gained new urgency since the discovery that the Europa crystals contained ancient climate data from both Earth and the Arxolian homeworld. If these formations had helped both planets survive past climate shifts, perhaps they could help Earth navigate its current challenges. News of their research soon reached New Beijing, where Raj was coordinating with global environmental agencies. The timing couldn't have been better, or more critical. The latest projections showed accelerating ice melt in both poles, threatening coastal communities worldwide. "We need to move quickly," Raj told Anita during a late-night video conference. "But we also need to be careful. The last thing we want is to create new problems while trying to solve old ones." The Arxolians, particularly those who had worked on the sacred moon restoration, took immediate interest. Seventh Gleam personally volunteered to join the research team in Kochi, bringing with them decades of experience in crystal manipulation. The collaboration that followed was unlike anything in Earth's scientific history. In the lab's main chamber, now modified to accommodate Arxolian crystalline interfaces, human and alien researchers worked side by side to unlock the Europa crystal's secrets. Their first breakthrough came unexpectedly. While testing the crystal's response to various energy frequencies, Anita noticed that they didn't just absorb and redistribute energy, they could transform it. The implications were staggering. These ancient formations might hold the key to not just managing climate change, but actively reversing it. "Look at this," she called out one evening, her voice trembling with excitement. The test chamber showed something remarkable. A miniature crystal array was actively converting excess heat into other forms of energy, creating a perfect thermal balance in its environment. Dev quickly ran the numbers. "If we could scale this up," he said, his fingers flying over the holographic controls, "we could potentially stabilize temperature patterns across entire regions. No more extreme weather events. No more unpredictable seasons." But scaling up the technology proved challenging. The crystals were complex and difficult to synthesize. Moreover, they seemed to require both human and Arxolian input to function properly, as if they were designed to work only when both species collaborated. The answer came from an unexpected source. During a routine video call with Deepwater Station, Aisha mentioned something curious about the Europa formations. They appeared to grow faster when exposed to oceanic minerals similar to those found in Earth's deep-sea vents. This observation led to a new approach. Instead of trying to synthesize the crystals in labs, the team began exploring ways to cultivate them naturally in Earth's oceans, using modified versions of the techniques developed during the sacred moon restoration. The first test site was chosen carefully, a section of the Arabian Sea where rising temperatures had devastated local marine ecosystems. Under the watchful eyes of both human and Arxolian scientists, the first crystal seeds were planted near a network of artificial reefs. The results exceeded everyone's expectations. Within weeks, the crystals had not only grown but had begun integrating with the local ecosystem. Water temperatures stabilized. Fish populations started returning. Most surprisingly, the corals around the crystal formations showed signs of regeneration. "It's not just about controlling temperature," Anita explained during a global conference that attracted scientists from every corner of Earth. "These crystals are helping restore natural balance. They're showing us how to work with Earth's systems rather than against them." The project's success attracted attention from other worlds facing similar environmental challenges. Representatives from 3 different alien species requested permission to observe the process, seeing in Earth's example a possible solution to their own planetary troubles. But perhaps the most profound impact was on the relationship between humans and Arxulians. Working together to solve Earth's climate crisis had created bonds that went beyond mere diplomatic alliance. They were learning to see their species' differences not as barriers but as complementary strengths. One evening, as Anita watched the sunset paint the sky in colors that reminded her of Arxulian crystal formations, she received an unexpected visitor. Walking along the beach, accompanied by Seventh Gleam, was her grandmother, who had lived through some of Earth's worst climate disasters. The elderly woman stood for a long time, watching the crystal formations shimmer beneath the waves. Finally, she turned to Seventh Gleam and spoke words that seemed to capture the spirit of everything they had achieved. In my lifetime, I've seen humanity break things we thought could never be fixed. Now I'm seeing us fix things we thought could never be healed, and we're not doing it alone anymore. Seventh Gleam's crystalline form pulsed with warm colors that needed no translation. The message was clear: this was more than a scientific triumph. It was proof that the greatest challenges could be overcome when different species learned to combine their strengths and wisdom. As news of the project's success spread, other coastal regions began preparing their own crystal seeding programs. The technology that had once seemed alien and mysterious was becoming a symbol of hope, a testament to what could be achieved when humanity looked beyond its own world for answers. The success of the Kochi Crystal Seeding Project sparked a global renaissance of environmental restoration, but for Captain Arjun Mehta of the deep-sea research vessel Oceanic Pioneer, this was just the beginning. 6 months after the first crystals were planted, he found himself navigating through the previously polluted waters of the Pacific Garbage Patch, now transformed into something extraordinary. Where masses of plastic waste had once choked the ocean, crystal formations now rose like underwater mountains, their structures gradually breaking down centuries of human pollution. Schools of fish darted through the crystalline matrices, while new forms of coral took root in the cleansing waters. Surface temperature reading holding steady at optimal levels, reported his first officer, Dr. Yuki Tanaka, her eyes fixed on the ship's advanced monitoring systems. The crystals weren't just cleaning the ocean, they were maintaining perfect conditions for marine life to flourish. But today's mission went beyond routine monitoring. The Oceanic Pioneer carried precious cargo, a delegation of scientists and diplomats from 3 different alien species, all eager to learn from Earth's successful environmental restoration program. Among them was Cloud Dancer in Storm, a representative of the Zephyrians, beings of pure energy who had been watching Earth's transformation with great interest. Their home system was facing similar environmental challenges, though on a much larger scale. "Your approach is unexpected," Cloud Dancer communicated through their translator, their energy form shimmering with curiosity. "Most species try to conquer their environmental problems with massive engineering projects. But you chose to work with natural systems, even alien ones." Arjun smiled, remembering his grandmother's stories about growing up in Mumbai during the worst of the climate crisis. "Sometimes the best solutions come from understanding we're part of something bigger than ourselves," he replied, watching as a whale breached near one of the crystal formations, its massive form silhouetted against the setting sun. The ship's communication system crackled to life with an incoming call from Anita's lab in Kochi. New data had emerged about the crystal's evolution. They weren't just cleaning the environment, they were adapting to Earth-specific needs, developing properties that neither humans nor Arxulians had anticipated. "The crystals are learning from Earth's biosphere," Anita explained, her holographic image flickering with excitement. "They're not just following the patterns we set, they're developing new ones based on local conditions. It's like they're having a conversation with our planet." This discovery caught the attention of First Light of Dawn, who had joined the mission representing the Galactic Council. The implications went far beyond environmental restoration. This was evidence that the crystals could adapt to help any world in crisis. But not everyone welcomed these developments. As the Oceanic Pioneer continued its survey, they received reports of resistance from certain quarters. Some worried that the crystal's rapid evolution might spiral out of control. Others feared that humanity was becoming too dependent on alien technology. These concerns came to a head when the ship's sensors detected unauthorized activity near one of the major crystal formations. Someone had deployed devices designed to interfere with the crystal's growth patterns. Multiple heat signatures approaching the western crystal matrix, Yuki announced, her voice tense. The ship's cameras revealed a group of submersibles moving through the darkness, their intentions unclear but certainly unauthorized. Arjun faced a crucial decision. The crystals were technically under international protection, but any aggressive response could damage the delicate diplomatic relations they'd worked so hard to build. Drawing on years of experience handling deep-sea emergencies, he chose a different approach. "Open a channel to all vessels in the area," he commanded. Instead of threats or warnings, he began sharing live data from the ship's monitoring systems, showing exactly how the crystals were helping to restore marine life and stabilize ocean temperatures. "Look at what we're achieving here," he broadcast. "This isn't about humans versus nature, or Earth versus alien influence. It's about finding a way forward together. These crystals aren't controlling our environment, they're helping us restore the balance we lost." The effect was immediate and unexpected. The unauthorized vessels stopped their approach. Then, one by one, their crews began requesting permission to dock with the Oceanic Pioneer. They weren't saboteurs, they were independent researchers who had feared the crystals might be more dangerous than reported. What followed was an impromptu conference in the ship's main observatory. As waves crashed against the reinforced windows, humans and aliens alike shared their hopes and fears about the crystal project. The transparent dialogue helped ease tensions and led to new protocols for monitoring and studying the crystal's evolution. Cloud Dancer in Storm observed these interactions with particular interest. "Your species has an unusual capacity," they noted. "You don't just solve problems, you turn conflicts into opportunities for understanding." The delegation's visit concluded with an unexpected ceremony. As the Oceanic Pioneer held position over the largest crystal formation, representatives from each species contributed their own unique observations and insights to a shared database. This knowledge would be encoded into the crystals themselves, becoming part of Earth's growing environmental restoration library. Looking out over the transformed seascape, Arjun reflected on how far they'd come. The oceans that had once been seen as victims of human progress were now becoming examples of how progress itself could be redefined. "We're not just cleaning up our past mistakes," he told the assembled delegation. "We're learning how to be better custodians of our world, and we're doing it by working together, not just with other humans, but with other species and with nature itself." As if in response to his words, a pod of dolphins surfaced near the ship, their playful movements creating patterns in the water that seemed to mirror the crystalline structures below. It was a powerful reminder that the true measure of their success wasn't just in the scientific achievements, but in the return of life and joy to once devastated ecosystems. The Crystal Restoration Project's success had earned humanity unprecedented respect in the galactic community, but for Dr. Roshni Kapoor, lead researcher at the newly established International Crystal Research Center in Singapore, an even greater challenge loomed ahead. The Zephyrians' home system was facing an environmental crisis that dwarfed anything Earth had experienced, and they had formally requested humanity's help. The center's main laboratory hummed with activity as Roshni reviewed the latest data from the Zephyrian system. 3 inhabited planets, each with its own unique ecosystem, were experiencing rapid environmental degradation due to their sun's increasing instability. "The scale is incredible," she explained to her colleague, Dr. Akiko Yamamoto, who specialized in stellar physics. "We're not just talking about stabilizing a single planet's climate, we're looking at preserving entire worlds against the effects of a dying star." The challenge had brought together the largest coalition of human and alien scientists ever assembled. The laboratory's vast central chamber had been modified to accommodate beings of various forms, crystalline Arxulians, energy-based Zephyrians, and even representatives of the enigmatic Zen-2. First Light of Dawn, who had become humanity's strongest advocate in the Galactic Council, stood before a massive holographic display of the Zephyrian system. "What your species achieved in Earth's oceans proves it's possible," they said, their crystalline form reflecting the hologram's light. "But we must act quickly." The urgency wasn't just about saving the Zephyrian worlds. This project represented humanity's first major opportunity to repay the galactic community for their help with Earth's environmental restoration. Success would cement humanity's position as equal partners in interstellar affairs. Roshni's team had already begun adapting the crystal technology for use in space. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, her 10-year-old daughter's science project about snowflakes. "Look at this," she called out during a late-night session, pulling up images of both snowflake formation and crystal growth patterns. "We've been thinking too linearly. What if we let the crystals grow like snowflakes in zero gravity? They could create vast networks capable of filtering and redistributing stellar energy." The concept quickly evolved into Project Snowflake, an ambitious plan to create a crystalline shield network around the Zephyrian worlds. But they needed to test the theory first, and time was running out. The testing ground would be Venus, Earth's hellish sister planet. If the crystal technology could help stabilize Venus's runaway greenhouse effect, it might work in the Zephyrian system too. "Operation Morning Star is go," announced Mission Director Khadija Hassan from her command center in Orbital Station Helios 1. Below, automated ships began deploying the first crystal seeds in Venus's upper atmosphere. The initial results were promising. The crystals not only survived in Venus's harsh conditions but thrived, growing into vast, snowflake-like structures that began filtering the thick carbon dioxide atmosphere. Surface temperatures started dropping for the first time in billions of years. News of the Venus Project's success reached the Zephyrian system, bringing hope to billions of energy beings who had begun preparing for evacuation. But Roshni and her team knew that Venus was just a test run. The real challenge would be far more complex. As preparations began for the Zephyrian deployment, humanity faced its greatest logistical challenge yet. The project would require coordinating thousands of ships, millions of crystal seeds, and unprecedented levels of energy manipulation. The breakthrough moment came during a joint meditation session between human scientists and Zephyrian energy beings. As they shared consciousness, following protocols developed during the Europa discoveries, something unexpected happened. The humans began perceiving energy patterns the way Zephyrians did, while the Zephyrians gained new insights into physical matter. "It's not just about the technology," Roshni realized, emerging from the meditation. "It's about combining our different ways of understanding reality. The crystals aren't just tools, they're bridges between different forms of consciousness." This insight led to a fundamental change in approach. Instead of trying to shield the Zephyrian worlds from their sun's instability, they would work with both the star's energy and the planet's natural systems to create a new kind of balance. The project became known as the Great Harmony, as it required the synchronized efforts of multiple species. Humans provided the organizational framework and crystal seeding technology. Arxulians contributed their deep understanding of crystalline growth patterns. The Zen-2 added their expertise in stellar engineering. And the Zephyrians themselves helped attune the growing crystal networks to their sun's energy patterns. As the first crystal seeds were deployed around the nearest Zephyrian world, Roshni stood in the observation deck of the flagship, Harmony, watching the snowflake-like structures begin to grow. Beside her, her daughter gazed in wonder at the shimmering patterns emerging against the backdrop of space. "Mom," the girl asked, "do you think the crystals know they're helping save whole worlds?" The question struck Roshni deeply. Throughout all their scientific achievements, they still didn't fully understand the consciousness of the crystals themselves. Were they simply following natural growth patterns, or was there something more? The answer came in an unexpected way. As the crystal network grew, it began displaying patterns that seemed to respond to the collective emotions of all the beings involved in the project. Hope, fear, determination, and joy were reflected in the ever-changing crystalline structures. "Maybe they understand more than we think," Roshni replied, watching as a particularly beautiful pattern formed in response to a wave of gratitude from the Zephyrian population below. "Maybe they're teaching us that everything in the universe is connected in ways we're only beginning to understand." The Great Harmony Project marked a new chapter in galactic history, not just because of its ambitious scale, but because it showed how different species could come together to solve problems that none could handle alone. As the crystal networks grew around the Zephyrian worlds, they became more than just environmental stabilizers. They were monuments to what could be achieved when beings of all forms recognized their fundamental connection to each other and to the cosmos itself. 5 years after the Great Harmony Project began, the observation deck of Earth's new galactic embassy in New Beijing buzzed with anticipation. Raj Kumar, now Earth's senior ambassador to the Galactic Council, stood before the gathered crowd of humans and aliens alike, preparing to make an announcement that would mark the beginning of a new era. Through the vast windows behind him, the crystal-enhanced gardens of the embassy complex sparkled in the morning sun. These weren't just decorative, they were part of a worldwide network that had transformed Earth's climate management systems, a living testament to how far humanity had come. "Today," Raj began, his voice carrying the wisdom gained from years of interstellar diplomacy, "we celebrate not just the completion of the Great Harmony Project, but the beginning of something even greater." The holographic displays activated, showing live feeds from the Zephyrian system. Where there had once been worlds in crisis, there now existed a spectacular network of crystalline structures, shimmering with patterns of energy that protected and nurtured the planets below. But more importantly, the displays showed something unprecedented: new forms of life evolving in the spaces between the crystals, neither purely energy-based like the Zephyrians nor purely physical like Earth's creatures. Dr. Anita Desai, who had traveled from Kochi for this occasion, watched the feeds with tears in her eyes. Her early work with the ocean crystals had helped pave the way for this miracle, but even she hadn't imagined such profound consequences. "The crystal networks aren't just environmental systems anymore," she explained to the assembled crowd. "They've become incubators for new forms of life, new ways of being. They're showing us that the boundaries between different forms of existence are more fluid than we ever imagined." The success of the Great Harmony Project had transformed humanity's role in the galaxy. Earth was no longer just another world seeking its place among the stars, it had become a symbol of what was possible when different species worked together, when technology and nature were brought into balance. Priya Patel, now director of the Interstellar Engineering Corps, stepped forward to share the latest data. The crystal technology that had saved Earth's oceans and the Zephyrian worlds was being adapted for use throughout the galaxy. But more importantly, the collaborative approach that had made it all possible was spreading too. "We're seeing something remarkable," she said, manipulating the holographic display to show various projects across multiple star systems. "Different species are coming together not just to solve crises, but to create new possibilities. The crystals have become a bridge between worlds, between ways of thinking." The presentation was interrupted by an unexpected but welcome arrival. Morning Song Through Ice, one of the original Arxulian crystal shapers who had worked on the Sacred Moon project, entered the chamber. Their crystalline form had evolved over the years, incorporating patterns influenced by both human and Zephyrian contact. "We came to Earth thinking we would teach you about crystal manipulation," Morning Song chimed, their translator now barely needed as most humans had learned to read Arxulian color patterns. "Instead, you taught us about connection, about how different kinds of wisdom can combine to create something greater than the sum of its parts." The gathering turned into an impromptu celebration as news arrived from various projects around the galaxy. The Venus Terraforming Initiative was ahead of schedule. The Europa crystals had yielded new insights into the evolution of consciousness itself. And perhaps most surprisingly, ancient crystal formations had been discovered on dozens of worlds, suggesting that the connection between different species went back further than anyone had imagined. Aisha Rahman, joining virtually from her new position as head of xenobiology at Deepwater Station, shared her latest findings. "The crystals aren't just a technology we're using," she explained, her hologram gesturing to complex data patterns. "They're showing us that the universe has been trying to bring different forms of life together all along. We're just finally learning to read the message." Dr. Roshni Kapoor, fresh from her success with the Great Harmony Project, unveiled plans for an even more ambitious initiative. The crystal networks had proven so successful at facilitating communication and understanding between species that a proposal had been made to create a galactic network, not just for environmental management, but for fostering connection and cooperation across the entire known universe. "But the most important discovery," she added, smiling at her daughter who was now a promising young scientist herself, "isn't about the crystals at all. It's about us, about how every species, every world, every form of consciousness has something unique to contribute. We just need to learn how to listen to each other." As the celebration continued, Raj found a quiet moment to stand alone at the window, looking out over the transformed Earth. He thought about his grandmother's stories of the water wars, of how humanity had nearly destroyed itself fighting over resources. Now, those same challenges had led them to reach out to the stars and find not just solutions, but a whole new way of existing in the universe. First light of dawn joined him at the window, their crystalline form reflecting the evening light. "Your species has come far," they observed. "But perhaps more importantly, you've helped all of us come far together." Raj smiled, watching as a group of young human and alien students played in the crystal gardens below, their laughter and various forms of communication creating a harmony of their own. "Maybe that's what we needed all along," he replied. "Not just to reach for the stars, but to learn how to reach for each other." The sun set over New Beijing, its light catching the crystal formations in ways that created rainbows across the sky. In orbital stations, deep-sea research facilities, and colonies across the solar system, humans and aliens alike paused to watch the spectacle. The crystals had become more than tools or technology, they were a reminder that in a vast and sometimes challenging universe, the ability to grow, adapt, and come together was the greatest power of all. As night fell, the crystal networks across Earth and throughout the galaxy continued their endless dance of light and energy, singing a silent song of hope for all species who looked up at the stars and dreamed of what might be possible together.